Hey, is this thing on? Lance, Nick, ready? Can you hear me? Welcome to the Live Free and Hunt podcast.
Episode 15 coming at you hot. Live Free and Hunt podcast. We had Rob and Diane Richardson. We talked a lot about blood tracking, catfishing, deer hunting, and just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. This will be a two-part podcast, so look out for next week's second part of the podcast. We had some great stories were told in this. Nice couple, very humble, very informative people. They are awesome. Can't say enough about them. We want to thank you guys again. But yeah, let's get right into this and let's get it.
You're like a bad deck of cards that loves to lose. You don't listen to me, and I don't want you to, 'cause we sure have fun throwing my money away. You bet high, I bet low. You're all in and I'm all broke. Another paycheck down the drain.
We got Rob and Diane, and we're going to talk some deer tracking. We're going to talk some blood tracking. We're going to talk some catfishing and all around some hunting
Shed
stories.
hunting, a little bit of everything.
So, I don't know who wants to go first. Rob, maybe? You want to... How'd you get brought up in the outdoors?
Well, we're about where I grew up. About a mile down the road is where I grew up. So this has been my playground for quite a while.
It's a beautiful spot.
It is. This is our undisclosed location. And Springfield, New Hampshire is where we are. And there's a lot of public land here.
Yeah.
And pretty much from the time I woke up in the morning to the time I went to sleep, we were outside.
Yeah.
My mom opened the door and said, go. So we
You
we
have
learned,
siblings?
I have two brothers and a sister.
All right. So it was outside. I can feel that, yeah.
Yeah, so we'd be outside, and my brothers were always into working on lawn tractors and bicycles and that kind of stuff, and I had no interest in that.
Yeah.
I was always out trying to find where the deer lived, where the trout were in the brook, or where the frogs were in the pond, that kind of thing. So I really always had this draw to the whitetail, and I guess it's kind of shown because it's pretty much my life now.
Yeah, that's all you do.
Yeah. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, that's the first thing I think about is, where's that big buck right now?
Right.
Where's he sleeping? What's he eating? So that would be it.
Nice. What about fishing? I've seen a couple pictures of some big-ass catfish. You know anything about catfish?
Yeah, I do, actually. Yeah, we... years ago, I used to live down in Keene, or West Chesterfield, New Hampshire, and I worked with a guy. I guess I could mention his name just because he's going to listen to this. Stephen Bittner. Him and I used to go fishing quite a bit after work, and we lived right next to the Connecticut River. And I had this thing as I'd never caught an eel before.
Yeah.
And I wanted to catch a freshwater eel.
Gross.
So we would go down and...
You're good.
You're good.
You gonna make it?
I say that to my daughter. You're all right. You're all right.
Yeah,
You're good.
Swallow the water the wrong way instead of throwing it on the floor.
Hey, I guess that's better. So we asked around, and I asked a couple of the fish and game biologists how to catch them. So they'd tell us, you go down at night, use night crawlers, and just sit there and wait. So we did, and we started off, and we were really productive with the eels.
Yeah.
My largest eel to date was 4 feet long.
No shit.
Wow.
And it was a monster. It was a female. And as you know, anything above about 2 feet long is a female.
I didn't know that. No.
Didn't know that about the eels.
So the females are always bigger because they carry more eggs
Yeah.
as they swim back to the Sargasso Sea. Anyways, that spot that we were fishing kind of got boring. We'd been there all this time, all summer. So we decided we'd go to a different spot. And somebody said, you got to find this place they call the Point. That's got eels in it. Okay. So we get lost. we run into some police officers, and we asked them where the Point was.
Where's the Point? Yeah.
And they said, oh, well, you got to go down here and then here. So we ended up in some place. I still don't know if where we went to was the Point. We got there, and it was this beautiful beach, pretty much like what you see here. And we were just in awe.
Yeah.
It's one of the most prettiest places on the Connecticut River. So I had decided I was going to try chicken liver for them.
Yeah.
Because somebody told me they catch big ones with chicken liver. So I cast out. Steve did the same thing. We're both running our 2 rods. And the next thing I know, Steve's rod is bent over double. I'm like, boy, that's a big eel right there. He hooks into it and he brings it in. And lo and behold, it was at the time when it started coming in, I said, that's the biggest hornpout I have ever seen in my life.
Right.
So we weigh it, and it was 8 pounds.
Wow.
Jesus.
And I says, that's a state record. But then I got looking at it, and I says, that's not a hornpout. And I says, that's a channel cat. So the next day I called Gabe Grease, who was the fisheries biologist, and I said, Gabe, I caught a channel cat in the river. And he says, no, you didn't. I says, no, I did.
Come look at it.
And he's like, he goes, it was probably a white cat. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go back down. We fish again. We caught 5 or 6 more of them. 8, 9, 10 pounds. And every time we go, we'd be catching 8, 9, 10 pounders.
Wow.
So I says, we got something here. So I finally got Gabe to agree that if I brought him one, he'd certify it as a new state record for the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't care if I got it or not. So I took my nephew.
Nice.
He was 12 years old at the time, and we took him down. And the first night he catches an 11.5 pounder.
Holy
Jeez.
smokes.
So that was the first state record.
So what is this? Is the species? Is it
It is, and he certified it as channel cat.
channel cat?
So channel catfish now are an official species.
I
in
didn't
New
know
Hampshire.
that.
Yeah,
That's a crazy story. Well, that's just crazy that actually happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they've moved up from Massachusetts.
Okay.
They come upriver.
Right.
So at this point in time, there is basically 2 breeding populations, in my estimations, from what we catch. One below the Hinsdale Dam in Vernon,
Yeah.
and a population above all the way to Bellows Falls.
No shit.
So those are the 2 places that if you go and fish for channel cats, that's where you're going to catch them.
And that's the only river you're assuming that they're in right now.
Assuming. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't fish the Merrimack. You always hear these ghost stories of
Oh, the
there's
Merrimack, yeah.
some in there, or there's. I mean, coming. I don't know if they have them. If they're in Massachusetts, they'll be in the southern part of the river.
Right. Yeah.
They do travel. I mean, just by nature, they'll travel upstream during the spawn. They always move upstream, and then they'll congregate below dams and find places to spawn. So if there's a fish ladder, it's just natural for them to go through it.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's how they've gotten. And at some point, they'll be farther north in the Connecticut as it goes.
Yeah.
But if you're going to catch the big ones, the area below the Hinsdale Dam is definitely the spot from there to Northfield, Mass.
Are you still using chicken liver as bait? Or you
Chicken
switch it?
liver, yeah. You know, a lot of the places will, if you read online or you watch any of the videos, they'll tell you that, that the best ways to catch the big ones are cut bait or live fish. You know, those fish in there, there's so many of them. I'm still having really good luck with the chicken livers. This year has been really tough with the dry weather and the warm water temperatures.
Yeah. Low water. Yeah.
Low water. And channel cats need a cooler water temperature anyways. You know, everybody thinks hot water for cats, but channel cat needs 2 things. They need cooler water and they need current.
That makes sense with the dam, with the cooler water,
Right.
that lower water coming over the dam.
Yeah, they get that.
Or coming
that-
through the dam.
Yeah,
yep.
that cooler water with more oxygen in it. So they're going to gather up at the dams. But my largest catfish, which was 37 inches long, which is a horse. He was really thin. It was an older fish. You could just tell he wasn't in great condition.
Right. Yeah.
He should have been right around 28 pounds, somewhere in that vicinity, but he ended up being 14.
Wow.
But
That's still a
fish
long fish.
is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, the picture of me with it,
Yeah.
it's just, it goes from here to there.
Right.
Nice.
But that fish was caught on a fall fish head that was about a half a pound.
Wow.
Like a 14 or
Yeah.
18-inch fall fish, cut the head off. They love head pieces if you're going to use cut bait.
Huh.
And that was just an experiment because I caught that fall fish. He'd deep hooked. He died. And I was like,
Yeah.
Fuck
let's
him out
try
there,
it.
yeah.
He was, and that hit the water, only sat there for 18 or 20 minutes, and he nailed it. And that was a fight. That fish got into the deep current and was big anyways.
Right.
That was oh yeah, I can relive that memory all day long. That was awesome.
So you accidentally stumbled upon catfishing.
Yeah,
Essentially.
Kind of
yeah.
in a way, yeah.
Yeah, but trying to catch eels.
Right.
We caught catfish, and we still do it today. We had one stringer that we caught this year. Once or twice a year, we'll catch a cooler.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be greedy and
Yeah.
catch a ton of them all the time, because it is a burgeoning population,
Yep.
and it's an unbelievable sports fish. I don't know if you guys have ever caught channel cats.
I haven't.
When I lived in Virginia, I fished for him, but never. I didn't know what I was doing.
The
So.
farther south you go, the smaller the channel cats are.
Okay.
Because of the warm water.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just blue cats grow bigger down there, and flatheads.
Yep.
And the channel cats are kind of they're a nuisance fish, if anything, kind of like a bullhead is to me now.
Right.
But up here, it's like the Red River in Manitoba. They grow huge.
Yeah.
They have the possibility in that river to grow to 30 pounds.
Wow.
Now, what's their main food source then?
Shad.
Shad. Okay,
Shad's
so they're
gonna
chasing
be-
shad
yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. So the shad that they stock in the river, the ones we're not allowed to keep,
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
unfortunately, because they'd make great bait.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the number one food source.
Huh.
That, crawfish, shad, and here's what's going to blow your mind: sea lampreys.
Really?
Sea lampreys
Sea
swim up
lampreys,
the river
yeah.
and spawn.
Okay. Yeah.
When the
They
babies
feed on
start
them.
swimming back down the river, they're about that long.
Yeah. About 2 inches. Yeah.
No.
They gorge on them.
Wow.
I have caught some
makes
big
sense,
ones that
yeah.
are just full.
Jesus.
So yeah,
Wow, that's gonna be fun.
they fight harder than. I don't really bass fish anymore. Bass,
Yeah.
salmon.
Are you
lake
doing
trout,
it? Is it a daytime activity or is it?
You can.
When I think of catfishing, for whatever reason, I think it's because hornpo. You go at night generally.
I do because of there's that adventure feel of it. There's
Yeah.
that cool. We're doing when we were catfishing, we're doing just like we're doing here.
Just
Yeah.
shooting the
Sitting
crap.
around
Yeah.
shooting a crap, having a cool one. All friends getting together. It's a really cool thing, and it's nighttime, so you get that river monster feel. You have
Yeah.
no idea.
It's an alligator. Oh shit! It's an
Exactly,
alligator.
So it is that kind of cool thing that you have with the catfishing is that whole adventure feel to it.
Yeah, and the bells go off.
The
and
bells go. It's
Oh,
like ice
Okay.
fishing.
Yep.
You know, like
I
ice
see
fishing.
that. They put the bell on the tip. Yeah. For the bite.
Yeah, exactly. You're all sitting there shooting the shit,
ding,
and
ding, ding, ding.
and somebody goes off, and next thing you know, everybody's running over there to
Yeah.
watch you catch your fish. You know,
Right.
and a lot of times we just
Damn, that's fun.
we'll put out
we gotta do it.
2 rods apiece, and everybody shares. So
Yeah.
if one guy caught one on
Next
his
person
rod, the
reels,
next guy
yeah.
just grabs his rod, and,
Yeah.
and we just go. So we have a great time. Now daytime, I just got a boat this year. I haven't outfitted it. I've been working on it, trying
Yeah.
to get it going because I'm cheap, because I'm from New England. I don't like
Yeah.
buying new stuff.
All
I
of us
hear
buy
ya.
used.
Yeah. So once it's going, what they do in the daytime is the channel cats hit deep water and suspend.
Yep.
They're a lot like most
A
game
bass,
fish.
yeah, or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting
So
that
they
cooler
get
water.
deep water and suspend in the main current, so they got current hitting them in the face, and they got good oxygen. So you drift for them. So you'll go upstream, and you'll find holes. What we'll do is we go up with the boat, with the fish finder, you mark the holes,
yeah.
and then you come back, and you drop your buoys.
Yep.
And when you get down, now you can drop your lines and go through that hole. And if you hit a good hole, boy, I'll tell you, you can catch a lot.
Lit them right
I
up,
mean,
huh?
our biggest, that stringer I was telling you about was 81 pounds this year
Wow.
of
That's a good
catfish.
stringer, yeah.
it was a pretty good cooler.
You ever throw a hot dog out?
No, my buddy does up on
Slim
Champlain.
Jim?
And
Okay.
and that's how they catch. Like when they're fishing for eaters,
Yeah.
next to the boat, he has a boat on a dock there up on Champlain. Just throw a hot dog out and catch a couple eaters to fry.
Yep. Done.
Would you, sitting at the point, or what you call it, wherever you guys fish, wherever you guys fish,
Mm-hmm.
do you guys like maybe put out any like bait to attract them?
We
Like,
used to.
Poke a
Chum.
hole in a tuna can or something, tie it off, and then huck
I
it out
used
there
to
and pull
take
it in?
out. I'd take a minnow trap
Yeah.
Yep.
and take a bunch of frozen chicken liver
Oh,
or
okay.
bait or whatever, and just huck it out and just let it thaw out and get the smell and whatever. But over the years, there's a lot of myths that I've busted by doing this.
Yeah.
One, don't ever use rotted bait. One, your wife is not going to let you sleep. In the
We're
same
not
bed.
alligator fishing here.
Right. But if you go online, you'll see these guys making.
They hook with a gallon jug. They'll put a hook on it. Yeah, and just hang something.
Yeah, well, they'll take it and they'll take their whatever they're making, chicken liver, beef liver, and they'll put teriyaki sauce, whatever, sit it in the sun and let it just rot. And then they'll use that. Well, channel cats like nice, fresh blood. That's what they're attracted to, is the blood.
Okay.
So if you're
what's
throwing
coming out
out
the
rotted
liver here.
stuff, the blood's no good.
Yeah.
It's not really
They're gonna go the other
attractive.
way, right? Yeah.
Right. So over the years, we've busted that myth. You want as fresh chicken liver. I used to put the teriyaki sauce in it. They still eat it. It's that garlic taste that they like.
Except now he can't eat anything that has teriyaki.
Yeah, chicken
sauce.
teriyaki, I'll throw it in the trash.
Why?
I won't, because
Reminds me.
if you come
that
fishing,
slimy
you
that
come
thing
with us and you sit there all night putting teriyaki
Ah.
bait on.
And that's all you smell.
Yeah.
You're on your clothes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's nothing. I won't even eat beef teriyaki anymore.
That's awesome.
It's nasty. So, you want the freshest bait possible. You don't want rotten bait. And the bigger the bait, generally the bigger the fish. Especially with you catch a 2-pound channel cat,
Yeah.
and he can eat 2 chicken livers put together. I mean, we're using 8/0 hooks.
Yeah.
8-aught hooks.
Yeah.
That's a good size.
That's a good hook, and
That's
you're
an
catching
8/0,
three
yeah.
3-inch.
Striper hook.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you catch their mouths are huge.
Yeah.
So you catch that 37-inch one I got, I could literally put my head in his mouth.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, it looks like a flathead. His head's
Yeah,
so
and
big.
those things
so-
we're swimming with those bastards, huh?
Yeah, and they bite.
Do they?
Holy mackerel, do they bite?
Like a noodler bite?
Yeah, I don't know how those guys do that.
Really?
Because I mean, they're
It's
catching
that-
a lot bigger.
I know they
stronger
break
fish.
hands and shit like that.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah.
That I caught a 10-pounder a couple years back, and he deep hooked himself,
Yeah.
which is weird with a circle hook. And I reached down in there to grab it out and be nice and
And
get
he-
it out, and he clamped on my wrist, and my wrist, I mean, it
swollen,
hurt.
yeah.
And he started flopping around. I thought he was going to break my wrist.
Really?
And it was only a 10-pound fish. So he, those things can be pretty nasty.
Yeah.
You don't want to stick a finger in there.
No, just a finger.
And he'll break it. I mean, a big fish will break it pretty
Right.
easy.
So no rotten bait, and what was the other one? So no rotting bait.
You don't need special sauce. I do use garlic, and the garlic does tend to attract more fish. We found it's like 3-to-1
Yeah.
on the regular bait. So what I'll do is I buy the chicken liver bulk.
Okay.
I'll buy a whole
Heck
case.
yeah! You throw it in the freezer. And
Where do
take
you
it out.
where do you find chicken? Like at the
The grocery store, you
They'll
can
sell
order it. They'll order it for you.
Or any butcher shop or whatever.
I got lucky. Here, where I work, we just butchered out. What? We butchered
the
out a
cows?
bunch of chickens.
Oh, chickens. Yeah.
And
Meat birds.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I got the hearts and livers.
Nice.
Oh, perfect.
So
Fresh.
we got a lot.
300.
300
Wow.
chickens. So
Wow.
I got my freezer's got
Wow.
more catfish bait in it than it does. You got to watch that. He's sneaky.
Scared the crap out of me.
So yeah, I keep a lot of chicken liver on hand. Like if I go to Champlain with my buddy,
Yeah.
you can't find chicken liver over there.
Really?
So we have to bring our own.
Huh?
Yeah.
No way. Huh?
And it's magic over there because I don't think the fish
They
are
don't
used
fish.
to it.
Yeah, right.
So they get a
People
little
are
bit of
throwing out Walmart Franks.
yeah.
Ballpark.
In
Right?
Plattsburgh, yeah, they're over there throwing out Walmart.
They do a lot. They do a lot of cut bait there, alewives
Yeah.
and stuff, and that's their main source of food. There is
Yeah.
alewives and white perch.
When I went up there with Nick, bow fishing, man, the eels in there, we saw a shitload of eels.
Really?
Yeah, all in
Yeah.
like 2 feet of water, all around the shores.
Yep.
Shitload of eels, big ones too.
Yeah, they're
Huge.
lucky there because they got the locks that come
Yeah.
up from the Hudson, so they can get
Yeah.
in there and out of there. There's a lot of eels here that are landlocked that will live until they're dead. They can't get out. There's a lot of lakes like that. Eels live here for 30 years.
Wow.
You know, they hit the water, they stay for 30 years, and then they leave. That's
30 years.
Yeah.
I'm 30.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So what's the state record is, I'm going to guess, but I think it's like 8 or 9 pounds.
Wow.
Eel?
That's an
Yeah.
eel?
Yeah, it was like 40 some odd inches.
Jesus.
And I mean, people get creeped out by them, but they're really a unique species.
No, they are.
Oh, they are.
They
the way
are.
they
They're
breathe, yeah.
aliens. They're not from Earth.
I just went cobia fishing in Virginia. And, my buddy I've never been, so it's like sight fishing. You get a guy up top and, port side, 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever. Throw a live eel out there, but just I've never fished with eels before. Maybe I have with stripers.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you grab them in the head and it's like,
Yep, right around your arm.
yeah, I'm like, come on. But if you drop a pile of them on the ground, good luck trying to get them up.
Here, I'll freak you. I'll freak you out. You realize their blood is poison.
No.
Really?
If their blood gets into your system, you can die from it.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if I digest...
You can eat them,
You can eat them.
but if you have like a bad cut
Oh.
and a bunch of eel blood gets infused into your
Oh.
blood,
Which can happen. That must be common when you think you're playing around with hooks, you're on a boat.
Oh, I always got cuts and
Yeah,
shit all
me
over
too.
my hands.
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think. Their blood is corrosive or something.
Yeah.
Like
Something
I'm,
like
I'm
that,
trying to
yeah.
remember now.
We looked it up when you first started fishing them, and
Yeah, I
we're
was like, wow, these things are from another planet.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, they are. Yes.
an eel goes through such a crazy change
Life,
to its
yeah.
life. It
Yeah.
starts as a glass eel,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then
I
it
see
turns into
through
an
it, yep.
elver,
Yep.
and they change colors. And then once they hit the estuaries as elvers, then they start swimming upstream and turn into regular freshwater eels. And then when they swim
That's the
down,
only way that
They turn into a freshwater eel.
Yep.
wow.
It's one species that does this.
That's a hike to
Yeah.
where they have to go because we have them
Bermuda
in
Triangle.
in Milton, right?
Yeah, I
The
remember in
Salem
Milton,
Falls
we used
And that's
to
a poke.
catch them below the dam.
from the Piscataqua.
Yeah, and they catch them all the way north, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Maine.
up north, yeah.
so they go from there. They go all the way to the Bermuda Triangle.
Holy smokes.
That's where they spawn. The Sargasso Sea is the Bermuda Triangle.
That's crazy.
See, there's something to do with the Bermuda Triangle and eels.
That's why I always said
Right.
they're
We're
an
out of
alien
here, yeah.
I'm not fucking with them anymore.
They
Poisonous.
completely lose their digestive system when they swim downstream.
Yep.
Their stomachs disappear. Their eyes get really huge. They turn black
Yes,
and
I've
silver,
seen that. It almost like a film over them
Yeah.
before they start. Yeah.
and off they go. And they swim all the way back, spawn, and die.
What?
Oh yeah! You imagine
Holy
that
smokes.
4.5 foot eel with eyes the size of
Yeah.
a dip
can,
can,
yeah.
you know? Swimming down river. It's like freaking you right out.
The Trappers Convention in Bethel, Maine. We used to go up every year, and they always had a couple games for kids, even though it really wasn't a kids thing. But they would always
Oh yeah.
throw out
Put
a
the
tarp,
eels out.
throw a bunch of eels out, and
Vegetable oil or something.
oh yeah, and they'd have a 55-gallon drum, and the kids would toss them, and they'll see the little kid
It's like
gets a
catching
trophy
pig
or
at the
something.
fair,
Yeah.
right?
How many eels can you put in that bucket?
Yeah.
And they covered them all on a tarp. Oh,
And
it
they
was
were
funny
covered
though.
with
Oh,
slime.
the kids were so happy to be swimming in that.
Oh.
They were so happy to be rolling around in that tarp.
It's like rubber cement.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it
so
is.
nasty.
He has gloves that he used
Strictly.
specifically for
Yeah.
eels,
Yeah.
and they're literally like
They're solid.
solid,
Oh.
Really, dry right out, huh?
You know
and they smell
stand
so
up.
bad.
you know those bags.
It's like
They-
that sock in middle school. You're like,
Yeah.
what's this one?
You know the bags you get at the grocery store, those reusable.
yeah. the
Biodegradable
Yeah,
bags.
yeah.
This is gonna gross you guys out too. I'm trying not to freak you out too much, but if you put an eel in one of those,
Gonna go right through it.
it melts through it.
Yeah.
It like destroys
It's like
it.
gasoline.
A
Melts.
reusable bag. Oh, plastic. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's something about their mucus membrane that they admit that burns right through that.
Because one year he thought it would be really good
To weigh them.
To weigh them.
Because I used
Okay,
to,
yeah, smart bag. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you tear it and
I
then
used
put it
to
in.
measure them, girth, and then put them in something and
You know,
weigh
those,
it, and
the
then give it to.
reusable, not
Yeah.
not
To
the
fish
white
and game.
plastic ones,
The
but
reusable, like market basket bags.
yeah, those, yeah.
And it went right through
It's
the
like a
bottom of
woven-
that.
yeah.
You go to
Yeah.
pick up the eel, there's nothing there.
And I don't mean, yeah.
State
it's-
record.
it's-
Oh,
it's-
shit.
It's not like I weighed 6 of them and then it finally did it. No, I put one in it and just kind of like slimed through the bag. It melted.
Ugh.
I was like, I've never seen anything
Yeah,
like
they're
it.
like the Terminator shit.
So what
Alien
animals?
blood.
What animals would be affected by that then? So an animal bites onto that eel, the slime maybe
I don't
affects
think
it.
I don't
No?
think it
No, I
bothers
think
them.
it's just because those bags are made to break down.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
There may be some
biodegradable,
type of
yeah.
enzyme in that slime that can break it
that's
down.
wild. That's
But
gross.
it was, we really kind of were taken aback by it.
Yeah, enough with the eels.
Yeah.
Diane, how did you, did you grow up in the outdoors? How'd that work
I
for you?
did not.
You didn't? Okay.
Well, I was a farm kid,
Okay.
but we didn't have time for that stuff.
Did you grow up around here?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, I grew up around here, and I was a farm kid. We didn't really have time for that.
Yeah.
And then,
You gotta work every day.
24/7.
and then when I turned into an early teenager, family situation changed, and we moved to the city.
Oh boy,
And
that's a big change.
yeah, it wasn't fun.
No.
Because at the time I had a super heavy, what I call a New England accent. He doesn't call it that. I don't know
Some
what it
type
is.
of
Accent.
Some
yeah.
type of accent.
Some type of northern wood accent.
I had a really heavy accent, and I'd have to repeat everything in school.
Yeah.
Everything. And so we moved to the city into 7th grade, and I got unmercifully.
I'm sorry, Diane. We don't speak wood booger.
They put me into speech therapy. and
Because of your accent?
they couldn't understand me, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
shit.
couldn't get down there, could ya?
Yeah.
And the kids just were really horrible.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, I grew up kind of back and forth through different places like that. And then my mom grew up, very hard life.
Yeah.
Her dad hunted.
Oh, of course.
My mom didn't hunt, but very hard farm life. And my dad was a bus driver, and he didn't have time for that stuff.
Right.
He did hunt,
Yeah.
sort of.
Went out
like-
whenever the season came
He
around.
came with the
hopefully
boys,
shot
went and had
something,
a couple beers, walked around the woods with his gun.
I don't think
Yeah.
he never shot anything.
No.
But anyway, so when I was 20, I moved back home. I had moved out at 17, moved back home at 20, and my brother and I, we taught ourselves how to hunt.
That's
Really?
awesome.
Yeah, we taught ourselves how to hunt.
No shit.
You just woke up one fall morning and just said, "All right, let's do this."
No,
Let's
we
go
did,
out."
we had to plan it out. 'Cause,
Either
we
you
had
have
to
to be-
do hunter safety and all
Oh,
that.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we taught ourselves. I mean, I knew how to shoot a gun.
Right, right.
I already knew how to shoot a gun, but we had to teach ourselves how to hunt. And but the super funny part about my life,
But bumps.
super funny part about my life is when we moved to the city, and nobody liked me
Yeah.
because I was hick Phil.
Yeah, of course. You're from, the woods.
I became an animal rights activist.
Really?
Yeah, for a few years.
If I had known that.
Went vegetarian. Went vegetarian. Went animal rights activist.
Really?
Yeah, the whole bit for a couple years, and then at 20, I taught myself how to hunt, and then
Crazy, huh?
Then it
What made you? What was the?
Made you flip.
Yeah.
Oh, they're crazy as shit. I realized.
What
that,
am I doing?
I realized that what I thought.
You were hungry, is what you were.
Yeah.
I realized that what I thought I was doing was actually what's called animal welfare,
Yeah.
and what the crazy people are doing
Mm-hmm.
is animal rights.
Yeah.
And animal welfare and animal rights are incompatible. They're completely incompatible. And so I was really on the animal welfare side.
Yeah.
So, bye, ladies. And so I taught myself how to hunt, and then with my first husband, I learned how to trap. And so I went from
Yeah. The 0 to 60.
saving them to
Yeah.
trapping them, and doing.
Yep. And now I barely hunt now because I'm too busy tracking.
Right.
Tracking other people's skills.
We can roll right into that actually. What got you into tracking? And it's fairly new to New Hampshire. I don't know about the rest of the country. I know they've had it. Blood tracking for big game.
Well, I had trained I trained dogs, and I had trained dogs to AKC track, which
Okay.
is people
Yeah.
tracking.
Yeah.
That's people tracking. And they have, a beginner level, an intermediate level kind of thing, and a very advanced level.
Are there all age dogs going into this, or mainly just
Yeah, all age.
puppies?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
age, yep.
Yeah. And so I already knew how to teach a dog how to track
Yeah.
because this is what I did.
The same basics, right?
Yeah. And then a guy named Ed Wills was trying to make the deer tracking legal in New Hampshire. And he spent a couple years on it.
Couple years. Wow.
Yeah.
Just to push
Because
that
it's fairly
through, huh?
new. Within the
Well,
last...
it's 2007. So it's not so
Okay.
new anymore.
All right.
But
Maybe I'm just old now.
But then Rob went up to the Sportsman Show up in Burlington and came back with the Genanese book. They write the only USA book on tracking
Who
deer.
was it I talked to up there? Do you remember? Was it
Tim Nichols.
Was it Tim?
No, DePietri. Tom DePietri, the guy who
I don't
died.
even remember.
Yeah, it was the guy that died a couple years ago.
Oh, wow.
But he brought back the book, and they write the only book that's USA based.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the European version is much different. The way they do it.
They
there.
do it.
Tactic wise or legality wise?
Most of the countries where they do, because this is a European thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And most of the countries, you are
He's fine.
obligated, if you go hunting, you have to have a tracker on call.
Wow.
And in some of the countries, if you so much as give a deer a hangnail, you are obligated
to track
to
it.
try to recover that deer. And we had a guy here in New Hampshire that was from Germany, Joe, and him and his dog tracked in Germany, and then he came here and tracked, and it's very, very different.
That's what he said. It's very different. Just
He didn't like it.
He
It's
didn't
the
like
woods.
It, it made him crazy because over
Steep.
there they start the track on leash,
Yeah.
and then the dog indicates when you're close, and you slip the dog,
When you
and the
can
dog
go.
goes and bays
Here,
the deer, and then you go up and you shoot the deer. So,
Or boar. It's usually
or
boar
boar
there.
or whatever, yeah. So a marginally hit animal can be bayed by a dog,
Right.
and like a deer with a broken leg or something
So
like that.
eventually it's going to run out of gas.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Maybe. But the dog can bay it up, and then you get it. And then here, we're on leash only.
Yeah, I think European way of doing it, they're more concerned with not the fair chase aspect of it like we have.
But just
it's the
get it
ends
done as quick.
the ends justify the means.
Yeah. Just get it over as quick as you can. Find the animal, shoot it, done.
Yeah. Yep. So here is most of the states in the United States are on leash, which New Hampshire is on leash.
Can you have a check cord, or is there a certain length to your leash? Can you, I don't know.
Well, I track with a 15-foot leash. Some people track with a 30-foot leash. I would be wrapped up in the woods
Oh,
never to be
my
seen
word.
again with a 30-foot
Yeah. I don't even see how you make it through with a 15.
tangled up around the tree.
I can see a 30-foot if you're
In a field.
out
yeah.
west,
Yep.
Midwest or something.
Okay.
You'd be in better shape that way. But here,
Yeah.
I know from when I was doing it, because I did tracking before with her, but the longer the leash, when the dog gets into a situation where it wants to backtrack itself, you
It's
can
getting
spend
hung
half
up.
an hour just untangling yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So in some of the southern states, you can track off leash. Not too many, but some of them. Some states you don't have to be licensed. New Hampshire, you do. New Hampshire, we can carry a gun. Some states you can't have it even so much as a knife.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. Every state has different rules.
I'm surprised you're not even, at least to carry a sidearm, with you just in case.
New Hampshire, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're allowed to dispatch the animal if we get to it and it's dying at night. If we do it during the daytime, we have the hunter do it.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
But during the nighttime, the tracker is allowed by Fish and Game to
Dispatch.
the animal to get
But
it
you're
out
not
of
allowed to
service.
hunt it down.
No,
Right.
and that's a fine line too.
So what? Your dog walks up on the animal and gets up. The deer gets up and takes off and lays back down. Are you allowed to shoot it then when it gets up? Or does the deer kind of have to be on its side, breathing?
in its bed.
Like, I'm just kind of curious how it works. Like,
It's a fine line. Basically, if you can get within handgun distance of it, you can dispatch it.
Okay. That's fair.
Because a deer that's marginally hit, a high back or something like that, you're not going to get within handgun distance.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
correct.
They're going to blow out of there.
Okay, that makes
It's
sense.
going to blow out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's been instances, and I'm pretty sure there has.
Oh, yeah.
If you shoot a deer and it's not mortally wounded, you can, with a dog, keep going and going and going and finally getting it. But the question is, when you do it and you can identify that that animal is not mortally wounded and is probably going to survive,
Yep.
the question is there, do you continue or do you stop because it's not mortally wounding? And at that point, you're now hunting it
right.
with a dog.
Yeah.
And there are some trackers that may or may not disagree with that.
Yeah.
So
I think
the ends justify the
everyone's
means.
Yep.
Yeah, but New Hampshire says you can't hunt the deer with the dogs. So when we determine that the deer isn't catchable
You
on
back
this
out.
day,
Back out.
you back out. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, in some states, like say a deer gets shot in the leg,
Yeah.
in some states you can run that deer down. It take you all day,
Yeah.
but you can run that deer down. And in New Hampshire, we can't do that.
Yeah. What do you think would be better if it was legal? Say
Well, I've seen plenty of deer I tracked a deer that was literally bleeding paintable buckets of blood,
Wow.
and it stopped.
just like that.
Just
Yep.
stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've seen it
and
too.
it had it walked through the mud. It walked through the mud, and it had 3 deep tracks and 1 shallow track. And I had gone on this track thinking it was a shoulder hit,
Right.
but it wasn't.
It's a leg.
It was a back leg.
Yeah.
And
So it was 3 tracks. It was up on its
yep.
limping.
So I says, it's a leg. It's eating. We're gonna hang that up. They got that deer on camera in January, February, something like that. 3-legged. It had lost the lower part of its
Whoa.
leg at the
Wow.
at the hock. And then the next year, somebody shot it, and they sent me a picture of it. So it lived.
So it was the right call. Yeah.
It was the right call.
Yeah.
It was
see
totally the
that.
right call because
Definitely.
he lived a whole nother year.
Yeah, a
He
whole
probably
nother year.
bred does. He, he was in good shape when
Yeah.
they shot it. He had a funky rack, but he,
You get that with any type of bone injury.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Compensation.
But we're not magic. We
Right.
don't it's not it's not like watching a hunting show.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't videotape their shots.
That
so you
is
don't
the hardest thing is
you don't
filming
know.
anything.
Yeah.
You don't know where they really
Hit.
shot the deer.
They were aiming at the spot where they're going to tell you, but they hit somewhere else, right?
Well,
Yeah.
you see, a lot of times you see it differently.
Oh,
Yeah.
blink of the eye. That deer could be standing here, but it was really back there, and you're like, holy
Adrenaline
smokes.
does weird
Oh,
things
yeah.
to your perception.
I'm
And-
sure.
And
yeah.
as hunters, we all know that you shoot at a deer, and I can, from the deer I shot this year, I was not aiming where I hit the deer. Deflection, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
But in my mind, I thought I shot him in
Yep, that's where I hit it. Yep.
right in the,
I had the pin
in the
right
vital
there.
V. I
Yeah.
thought I hit him there, but I hit him in the neck because
Yeah.
of the. But in my mind, that's where I hit it. So hunters will always tell you where they think they hit them, unless they actually really saw that it was a bad shot.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing when the people can't find the deer, they're like, I think I hit it. That's what you
The
hear
story
every
changed.
time. I think I hit
It was a
here.
perfect hit.
Yeah, perfect hit.
Right behind
I think
the shoulder.
I hit it
perfect
there,
hit.
yeah.
And then we've had it a million times. When we finally do get the deer, it's not where he thought
Yeah.
he hit it or
Yeah,
she.
but I mean, if you get to a point where you're not catching up with the deer.
Yeah.
I had a deer. Was it last year or the year before? The one that the 2 different people shot. That was 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I went and I shot a deer, and the guy was pretty sure he had liver hit the deer, and the blood sign kind of matched that, kind of, ish.
Sorry,
You
yeah.
know, you're
Yeah,
not
you
magic.
just don't know,
You're
yeah.
not
Are you
magic.
talking about
can't-
the Smith buck?
No, God, no. No, the one up on what they call Wound Mountain. There's a
Wound
mountain.
Mountain?
There's a mountain down. There's a mountain down the southern part of the state, and they call it Wound Mountain.
Oh,
'cause
they
everybody,
push it.
Everybody that goes there shoots a deer, wounds it, and never gets it.
Really?
They don't know anybody that's ever shot a deer.
Steep up and down.
It's really steep up and down. So
I
I went.
feel like I wouldn't hunt there.
So I go on this track, and the blood sign looked okay, and he had shot the deer, and he had walked up on the deer in the night, and the deer had gotten up and slowly walked away.
Yeah.
And so he called me, and I said, I'll be out there first thing in the morning. It sounded good.
If this is out of southern New Hampshire, what's the furthest you guys will drive? I'm sorry to interrupt your story.
The farthest we
I've-
have driven.
Oh, God.
Well, I'm guessing
Far-
the farthest you have driven has been for people you may know.
Yeah.
If you're going to
For
drive
repeat
that far.
Yeah.
We call them repeat customers. They're not really customers because they don't
Yeah,
get paid,
obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
We go to Lime quite often.
I've been
Okay.
to Lime a lot. Yeah.
And then what was the girl's name?
Ringe. I've been to
Down in
Ringe a
Ringe.
couple times, but that's
Okay.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
That's Callie, right?
Yeah,
and
that's-
she's awesome. She's
Yeah.
her and her
I
husband are really cool.
I wouldn't go that far on a regular basis though. Pretty much.
30-minute out.
Oh God, no! I'd never get anywhere. I go like up to an hour.
Yeah.
Is my average.
So you're right. 30 minutes out, you're kind of right now. You're in the middle of like.
Yeah.
eh.
It'd be
Yeah, well, from
Hanover.
my house, an hour can be
Yeah,
Lime.
you're not bad.
An hour
Yeah.
is Lime,
You can-
and an hour is Keene. So I go in there.
Okay.
You can cover-
I try to
better.
get her to go to Pittsburgh just so I can go, but
Yeah, I think
Never works
I think
out.
I heard
No.
about someone missing or wounding a deer in Pittsburgh.
yeah.
Anyways, to get back to the
So
story.
with
Yeah,
this
sorry
guy,
about
so the
that.
deer gets up and it walks away. So he calls me. I get out there in the morning. We have to go in on a 4-wheeler. It's out there.
Yeah.
And we get up there, and the sign's decent. And the dog. I was trying to think of how that went. Oh, someone else had come with us, but he brought his gun. And the only person on a track that can
Bring the gun.
bring the gun is the hunter.
Okay.
So I told him, I says, you can either leave it here at the 4-wheeler, or you can go hunting far away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So he went right. The deer was straight ahead. He went right, straight out right. So we get up there. We get to where the deer had been down, and the dog follows it down, and then she starts tracking what I call tracking light. She's not pulling. She's tracking. Her nose is
Yeah.
down, but
It's
she's
not excitable though.
it's like not serious, and she
Kinda cold.
kind of goes off, and I'm like, I bet your friend walked through here.
Oh no.
Because it was quite a while
Yeah.
before, he left before we get left where we were. And I said, I bet your friend walked through here. So we went all the way back up. It took me a while to figure this out because I was thinking, like you said, that it was just an older track. And then I'm like, no, I bet that guy walked through here. So we went back up, and she picked up the deer's track, and she tracked really well. And she kind of came down, and she went completely opposite the way the guy had gone
Yeah.
and around, and then started making the loop back, and we stopped and we took a break because it was really hot, and took a break, give the dog water. While we're on break, the friend calls.
Boom.
And says, I just shot a deer.
I need a track.
And, well, he didn't move.
Yeah,
He had
yeah.
shot
Right.
the deer. He said, I walked up on a deer in its bed and I shot it in the chest.
Yeah.
But it ran. And we're like, don't you freaking move.
Yeah.
Don't you move. You sit down. If that's the deer we're on, we'll be there in an hour.
Yeah.
If we're not there in an hour, it's a different deer, and then you can track your deer.
Yeah.
So we track, and the dog tracks along, and she comes back around, and she crosses where he had walked over. And then she went down, and she went along a field and down the edge of a field, and we're kind of heading his way, and through another field, and then over, and she's heading straight for him.
Wow, that deer went away
And we're like,
through nothing.
we're
huh?
like, this guy shot your deer. So we get all the way over there, and she picks up where he had shot the deer.
Yeah.
And now there's blood. The deer hadn't
the
been
heck?
bleeding at all. The deer had completely stopped bleeding after that bed. So now it's bleeding again because now it's
It's
shot
good shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, we're gonna get this deer, right? And we're following this deer. Now I legitimately have 2 hunters, so they both can.
They can
What?
shoot it. now.
That's a weird
They both
situation,
can.
huh?
They
That's
both
the
can
game
carry.
changer.
They both can
That's a
carry
weird-
their weapon.
Yeah.
What are the odds of that?
Because they've both they're both there. So but he decides he doesn't think that we're really going to track his deer. So he goes back up to where he shot it, and he just wanders off somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where the heck he went. So he's off. But my original hunter is with me, and this deer's running now and dripping blood, and so we're like, we're gonna get this deer.
Yeah.
And so we're tracking fast. And we come to this brook that's really deep. And it's over my boots. And it's
It's gnarly. It's a little fast.
but it's really steep down.
Oh, okay.
And the deer went down the bank. And I'm like, oh, this is such a good sign. This is such a good sign. We're going to
Yeah.
get this deer. So the guy went across to see if there was any blood. He didn't see any right away. And I walked up and down the bank a couple times trying to find a place I could cross. He comes back and he says he found a drop of blood. So
This deer's gonna be out
This
of blood.
deer, oh my God.
well, we get across. He actually helped me get across because it was, pretty deep.
Yeah.
And get across, and the dog takes off. And she's like dragging me along like a kite. And it's like bleeding like every 5 or 6 feet. A little drop.
Yeah.
And it goes up this steep.
How far away are you guys from the truck right now?
Oh, pretty far.
Holy
So
smokes.
we eventually come out to where the blood is getting smaller and smaller and smaller again. And we're now almost 5 miles from where we
Holy
started.
smokes.
I usually stop a track at 3.
Yeah.
So, but I because this other guy had shot the deer,
Right.
I was
There's
like,
2 wounds now, yeah.
yeah. And then the deer stopped bleeding. Totally stopped bleeding. And Bella gave me the, Mom, this deer isn't going to die.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so even though 2 different people shot at this deer,
It lived.
It's still made, or you couldn't.
we couldn't
Never
find
got
it.
confirmation.
never
Yeah.
get confirmation. But
Wow.
we went back.
Rugged.
The guy took pictures of the bed. When he wandered off,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
went up and he took pictures of the bed and stuff. And I think he just skinned.
Again.
I think he just gave it a skin.
He
wound.
just pulls up, the deer jumped up, boom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
because
give
the
it a
deer
haircut.
was facing him in the bed,
Yeah.
and he says I put it right in his
On
chest.
his chest.
Everybody
yeah.
says that.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
And I think he
To pull
just
up.
spun hair off one side.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. We're not magic. So I mean, here was a situation where
You thought you had it.
I
Thought you
was-
definitely had it.
I thought I definitely
Yeah.
had this deer, and it turns out it had a.
Superficial.
It wasn't a liver hit
Yeah.
because it would have been dead at this point.
Yeah.
It's the amount of hours that had gone by, it would have been dead. And it also wasn't shot in the chest that I thought it was.
Yeah.
Because, again,
It would have been
it
dead.
would have been dead.
Yeah.
And we put almost 5 miles on that deer.
Wow.
We actually came out really far from the vehicles, and we had to call somebody to come
give you a
get
ride
us.
back?
To
Yeah.
come get us.
Sounds like one of my tracking expeditions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get way
But-
back. Oh, I'm on a different road.
But, I wish we were magic because we get there, and we have to guess.
Yeah.
And hunters always get really upset with us because they're like, well, you should know
Yeah.
if we can get this deer or not. And how come, you got this dog? How come we can't get this
Yeah.
deer?
Well, you have the bow. How come you didn't get the deer?
There you go.
But,
You're always
Yeah,
you always
geez,
try to come up with something
Yeah.
smart you want to say to them, but you got to be polite.
yeah.
but but a lot of people just don't understand how deer are actually made
Yeah.
because
Out of
you're
iron.
you're
That's
looking
what it
at
seems like.
well, you're looking at a deer and you got the top of the back and the bottom of the belly
Yeah.
and you're like, there's a lot of deer there, but there's really not a lot of deer there
Yeah. A lot of-
because
There's a lot
from
of
the top of
Nothing.
the back
Yeah.
to the bottom of the spine is wider than my hand.
Is that right?
It's
That's
easily,
where I think I shot that buck a couple years ago. Right
it's
through the
easily
back.
like
Yeah.
1.5 of my hands before you get to anything important.
and when you hit him in that spot, you get the magical deer that drops as soon as you hit him.
Yeah.
Because like in football, you get a
Yeah, the
stinger,
Stinger,
spine shot,
right.
yeah.
pow, you're on the ground.
Yeah.
But it only takes them a couple of seconds to gain that
Pop back
composure
up.
up back and get back up.
Yeah, probably a high back hit is one of the most
Common.
Yeah,
Of
so
course.
Is it really?
Yeah.
the best thing I can give for advice is if you hit a deer like that with a muzzleloader, get reloading as fast as possible
Yeah.
because you can get a second shot when he gets up. But a lot of guys will hit him with that first
Boom,
shot
and
with a
they're looking.
muzzleloader, and then the deer goes down, and it's celebration
Yeah.
time. And the next thing you know, you look back and the deer is gone. I mean, we had
Jumping
Diane's got
away.
a pretty funny story about that one.
Which one's that?
The lime, the guy that went, the guy that had got out of work, decided he was just going to go and sit for a few hours. He only had a little bit to sit, so he went and sat. Big buck, big beautiful 8-pointer comes out, and he rails him with his muzzleloader. Thing drops. Guy's like, "Yeah, well,
Smoked him.
I'm not
yeah,
gonna
I
reload
gotta-
that one."
No, I'm gonna drive home,
I'm gonna put it
have
up.
dinner, and then come back with the kids and the wife and load
Oh
it
no.
up.
oh,
So he drove
yeah,
away.
yeah, that one.
And I'm not making light of him, because if he hears this, it's not funny. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
And
He's a great
shot
family.
a billion huge bucks. But he's like, yeah, he's dead. I'll go home, eat, come back, and get it. He comes back and the deer's gone.
Oh, that is awful.
And there's a
What a
blood
shitty
trail leading
feeling.
away. So
Yeah.
he calls us. That was one of those typical mature, badass whitetails that
Yeah.
goes through the worst place when they're hurt. And
Swamp, and thick, and
he had cut across, dropped into a brook valley, did a complete loop, headed back the opposite way there he got shot, went right down a stream valley that was as thick as a jungle. And we never caught him. He crossed a really deep part of the brook, but he had stopped bleeding there quite a bit,
He stopped
too.
bleeding forever.
And they
ago.
never saw him.
Yeah.
So, but that's a perfect example of if you shoot him,
And it drops.
shoot him again.
Yep.
if it drops right off the
Yeah, because it's a
snap.
high back hit.
Yeah.
And our very first track we ever went on with our first dog, a guy had called us right from the town we were living in. I just shot when he dropped right there. There's blood everywhere, and he got up and kind of wobbled off because I couldn't reload fast enough. We never found that deer because it's not a mortal hit.
Yeah.
It's just it'll bleed. It'll bleed like a stuck pig when you hit him in the loin.
Yep.
Yeah,
And-
Tim Comtoy shot a buck.
Buck up high like that.
He killed one. He shot it, but when we walked up to it, it had a hole in its backstrap.
Oh,
It'd been
yeah,
hit,
yeah,
but
yeah.
he was just chilling. Like it
Yeah.
didn't bother him.
Especially during the rut, they get that testosterone's flowing, that breeding
Yeah.
is flowing, and they just get back up and go. And I'm bleeding. Where's the girls? And they keep right on
Yeah.
going.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you get below that spine,
Yeah.
you get below the spine, and you're still in the upper part of the lung, especially if you're in the back upper part of the lung, the further back in the lungs you get, the wider apart the blood vessels are,
Okay.
and the further front and low you get, down by the heart and the
It's all
lungs,
tight.
it's really tight. If you
Oh yeah, cutting up a deer. Just
Yeah.
coming up to that center of the the chest bone right there. It's just like
Yeah.
it really isn't much space.
No, and if you hit it there just marginally, it's going to die.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've even seen deer where people have had their arrows, something's gone wrong with their arrow, and they've just gotten like 2 inches of penetration,
And it still died.
and the deer has still died. And they've got it, they've hit it right below,
Wow.
right behind the elbow, in the, up in the heart area.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they've just gotten the lung in that area, and they bleed to death and die because there's so many blood vessels there. But if you hit a deer in the lung, way in the back of the lung, especially high, they can live.
Really?
And they do.
Even you
And they-
pierce
Yeah.
the lung.
Yeah, yeah. And a single lung hit deer
Oh, probably most definitely.
can definitely live.
And we get that a lot when you get these guys that think they need to be 40 feet up.
Yeah.
And you're shooting.
Oh,
down.
And
so
they're
their
shooting
angle,
almost straight
yeah.
down, and your angle just hits that one lung. The odds are, especially if it's a mature whitetail, he's just going to suck it up and keep moving.
I don't go far that up. I don't go that high up.
No, I've seen some people climb.
Oh yeah, I've seen tree stands like.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Who's climbing that?
We've done an awful lot of single lung.
yeah,
hit.
Yeah.
Now,
25 feet and higher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
wow. Get that.
if you or even on a hill.
Yeah,
Even
there's
on
a
a
lot of
hill.
guys will put them up 15 feet, but they're on
You're
a
on
big
a hill,
steep
big,
hill.
yeah, big ridge. Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But especially if the deer's like quartering away. I mean, quartering two.
Yep,
Quartering
yep.
two. And
Yeah.
and
Skinnier. Yeah.
yeah, skinny, and so you can get a single lung hit. I've done an awful lot of them, and the deer bleeds a lot, and then you'll come to a spot where it looks like they puked up this huge pile of blood, and then there's no more blood.
That's the lungs.
That's when
collapsing.
the lung collapses. That one lung collapses,
Just get it out of the way, and then
Yeah.
you just throw it up, and then
Yep.
keep on trucking.
and they keep on going. Now some of those deer will probably die.
Yeah.
Right.
From
we can't
infection or
From infection, yeah.
something. We can't catch them though because they still got a lung, and unlike
They're
people,
breathing,
they're not
they're
wimpy
moving.
like people.
Yeah.
A person you got a collapsed lung, you're in the hospital.
Right.
These things are running.
But they're still going. Once they puke up that stuff, you get that big pile of mucus and blood and stuff.
So
and
when you
then
see
it
that, you
stops.
have an idea what that is,
Yep.
and it's
You're
still
like, oh.
moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it took us a while. I mean, at first, you think the same things everybody.
Oh, man,
look
that
at all
thing's
that blood.
blood,
But
yeah.
After you've done, I don't even know how many tracks you've done.
I don't even
I
know
haven't.
anymore.
So after
you learn
after
it.
coming up on that puked up blood, What do you guys
It usually
kind of just say?
stops.
Yep, stop.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
you,
it usually
you
sto-
go you go a little bit farther because
No.
I mean
Yeah,
you
oh,
never
yeah.
know what's
yeah,
going to happen.
right. You never
But
know.
I mean,
right.
but I mean, the blood stops.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
It stops bleeding. Oh no, we'll still track.
Yeah,
I
and,
track
but
up
you
to 3
but you
miles.
tell the whole time you're tracking, you're giving
them.
information to your hunter what you're seeing, and as you go along, either they'll pick up on the fact that you're not seeing what you want to see,
Right.
or you basically tell them, look, I'm not seeing the sign that is going to eventually get this deer for us. It's looking bad, but there's always that chance.
Have you ever been surprised to like have no blood or anything like that, and you're just going off kind of the dog's nose?
Yeah, your deer.
Oh
Is
Jesus!
can I?
There's
one more,
no blood?
One more thing. I just because I've heard this is it's not necessarily the blood that the dog is
No.
tracking. Is it?
No.
Is it?
It's
Well,
the
it's
interdigital
feet.
gland.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what it is,
well,
okay.
Dogs smell like we see. So if you look over here, you're seeing, there's a bright green bush here and a light green bush there, and you know what that tree is, and you know what that tree is, and there's some flowers there and stuff like that. That's what you're seeing.
Okay.
But when a dog is smelling a deer, they're smelling the individual deer. They're smelling the wound, whatever the wound is, whether it's just serous fluid coming out of a superficial wound, or if it's blood, or
Adrenaline.
or
Smokes.
you
That's a
know,
lot.
gut smell or whatever.
Yeah.
But then they're also smelling where that deer bedded
Okay.
and what it's been eating. And if it's a
Really?
buck, what it's been rubbing its antlers on. All of those things make a picture in the dog's brain of this deer.
Really?
So this deer smells like this
This.
combination of things.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
When they get hit, what was the name of that gland?
The interdigital gland.
In the
If they get hit, does something happen to that gland that makes it?
Well, that's their normal gland. How they communicate. That's
and-
their smell.
And each gland is particular to
Each
the
deer.
individual deer.
Okay.
So it's like our fingerprints.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that too, because when the deer walk, they smell of the tracks.
That's why. That's
They
how.
smelling for that gland.
Yes, that's how they. When you see deer trails in the woods, there's two reasons they make a deer trail in the woods. One, it's the easiest route for them to travel, and two, for generations, the deer
Deer
have
have been
used
using
it.
it.
So they smell all those footprints, so they keep following it because they know that's a good way
Safe.
to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
No shit. It's crazy because you'd be walking through the woods and then see,
Yeah.
looks like a goat path.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
so that's what that is.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
But then
It's
when,
like mice.
when
Mice do the same thing. They do it with urine,
they do it with urine.
Yep.
Yeah.
but
right.
it's the same idea.
But then if a deer gets shot, then they're releasing adrenaline and they're releasing fear smell, and
And that is a real thing.
that's a real thing. And I believe that's how the dogs determine, the experienced dogs like our Bella.
Yeah.
She'll be tracking along, and all of a sudden she'll be like,
Stop. This is done.
This isn't dead, right?
Yeah.
And
if they
and
can only
I
talk,
think- and I think
it'd be so
there's
much
a-
easier.
There's definitely a smell that comes from
yeah,
them when
and I
they're
think
dying.
that when the deer goes from scared to normal deer,
That's when
it's a totally different smell.
It's a switch, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't smell like it's dying because it's not dying. So it's not dying smell, and it's no longer afraid,
Yeah.
and it's just a deer.
And it comes right out in the dog's body language. I mean, it's amazing. You can literally
I've heard that. Yeah.
watch the dog. Oh, I'm excited, and just go, "Poof," and he's like, I'll track it, but
It's
you know,
not what.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll keep tracking if I ask her to.
Right.
We tracked a buck over in Newport, and in the boiler room, in the boiler
Yeah.
room, and the sign actually looked like that
Yeah.
at first, and it was a deer he never had on camera, he'd never seen before,
Thing just came out of nowhere.
and it's what we call a visiting buck. During the rut, the bucks
Yeah,
go
just
other
a
places.
Where the heck that
show
deer
up.
come from and never get it again?
Yeah.
The bucks go other places. So this was a visiting buck, and it's ironic because it was exactly on the other side of the mountain from where we used to live,
Oh, okay.
and so I sort of knew where this deer
kind of
would,
area
would
was,
go,
yeah.
and so it was this massive deer, and he shot this deer and in the boiler room, and he just couldn't believe it didn't die because it came
Yeah.
right out on a tote road following a doe. He shot it, and blood everywhere, and it just didn't die.
Yeah, he definitely didn't do it the Lanny Benoit way, where you just keep shooting until it falls over.
No,
Yeah.
he didn't do that. So he called me, and I went out, and we tracked this deer. This was hands down one of the most dangerous tracks I've ever done.
How come? Just because of the terrain and the
The
weather?
The deer followed this deer trail, and the deer trail was literally the width of my hand on the side of a vertical cliff.
Deer over there.
Well, where's the dog?
This is right here.
It was a deer trail the width of my hand on the
'Cause it's
side of
so
a vertical
thick.
cliff. No, it was a vertical
Oh,
cliff.
okay,
So
yeah.
it's like, it's this little width of my hand,
Yeah.
literally the width of one of my boots. Say.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of this was a brook with bedrock.
Oh, so big boulders,
Yeah.
And not too many trees on the side. And the dog is like pulling right along, just going right along. And I'm like, if I fall, you have to grab the dog.
Don't grab me.
No,
grab
come back
that
for me
dog.
afterwards. Grab the dog. And she tracked this deer out, and we had a couple more spots of blood. And then it came out onto a road heading up towards where we used to live.
Yeah.
And I knew where this deer was going. And as soon as she crossed that road, she went, it's dead. It's not dead. It's not going to die. Do we have to keep going?
Just pulled you
Right.
that hard, then all of a sudden just
Not going to die. Not going to.
So
And
that's
we got that deer on trail camera.
His
That
name
got
was,
hit?
His name was Lefty.
No, that wasn't Lefty. It was the other one.
It was the other.
It was
oh,
the
that
other one. And he had a scar that went from hip to shoulder. He ran right down the side of that deer. The bullet,
Really?
The bullet went right up the
Holy
side of the
smokes.
deer.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That was that 9-pointer.
Yeah, that was at 9.
So when he shot, the deer was like pretty much kind of
It
facing
probably
him.
it quartered away.
Oh,
It-
a quarter
it-
way, and he tried to exit.
Well, it crossed the road, and he saw it broadside.
Of course, yeah.
And as he pulled the trigger,
it switched.
it turned.
Yeah.
It turned. But he didn't see that.
Yeah.
He didn't see that. He saw it broadside. And we got that deer on trail camera. But that doesn't happen very often.
Right.
No.
A lot of
Yeah.
times we'll do a track, and we can't figure out for the life of us where that deer was hit.
Right. Dang.
We don't know. We know
Yeah,
where the
so-
hunter said they shot it.
That was my question is when they say, so someone calls you up, what is your go-to checklist to make sure it's legit
You guys, must have a checklist saying,
or
all right,
something
we're not going to
in
go
your
after
in your
this.
head?
Well,
Where do you think you hit it?
I'm just,
Yeah, where do you-
kind of.
I mean, I don't
Maybe for
screen
people
out
that
too
listen to
many
this.
calls.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't screen. Depends on where you are. Like the
Yeah.
trackers in the southeast part of the state, they pretty much have to screen to an extent.
Okay.
'Cause they get
because
so
they
so
get
many
many
calls.
calls.
We usually ask, where do you think you hit it? What were you using to shoot? Were you, was it a bow?
Yep.
Was it a rifle, shotgun?
What kind of an environment is it? Neighborhoods? Is
Yeah.
it farm? Is it?
Oh,
Yeah.
because you guys all have to worry about posted property coming up on a
Posted
posted
property, and not just posted property, but even non-posted
some-
property,
yeah.
just like
Someone's
the
backyard.
little cul-de-sac type places where you
Yeah.
might have some people who might be in anti-hunter, I guess you could call it, not happy with that type of activity,
Yeah.
that you may have to ask permission to cross their back lawn if the deer went across
Yeah.
there. Or you
Sounds
might
so
have to
gross.
recover a dead doe or something laying
In someone's
underneath their
lawn.
swing
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
And I've
So
done
I-
that.
Really?
those are just nightmare tracks like that.
Yeah.
And
Yes. So and if somebody calls me and they say I shot a deer with a bow
Mm-hmm.
through the neck, and the deer ran away with the arrow in its neck, I don't screen my calls, but I'm probably going to screen that one out
Yeah.
because I can't catch that deer.
Right.
No.
I cannot catch a deer that an arrow went through it
Right in the meat.
in the meat
Yeah.
and ran off
It's just
with
gonna
it.
keep on going. Yeah, you're wasting your time.
I
right?
mean, because the area in a neck that is,
you got to hit it in the
In
jugular.
the esophagus. Yeah.
again, there's a lot of things on the deer that's the width of my hand.
Right.
So it's like the width of my hand is the esophagus and the trachea and the carotid arteries. They're all pretty much in that same area.
Yeah.
And then there's this 4 times that size area above it.
Yeah, it looks
And,
big.
and
yeah.
2 times that size area below
Especially
it.
if the buck's in rut and their
Yeah.
necks are like this.
Especially with the arrow hitting. Well, it didn't. Did it hit it or did it go right through it?
Went through.
Oh, it did go through, fully through. So yeah, you don't know where the heck that thing.
No, and I had a guy that I had tracked for before, and he called and he says, I shot a deer with the bow, and it ran off with the arrow hanging out both sides of its neck. And I'm like, I can't catch that deer.
Right.
Not with the dog. It's going to be me and the dog and the hunter and maybe the hunter's friend. And the dog's got a bell on her collar, and
It's already on high alert.
Yeah,
it's going to
keep
be
pushing it.
Yeah.
And something like that, I'll say you're better off not calling a tracker.
Yeah.
And you're better off going back in there and still hunting.
Yeah.
As quiet as you can be, and still hunt that deer. And it doesn't have any blood, so you're going to still hunt in the direction you saw the deer go.
In the most obvious deer trails and tracks.
It's just because there are some things we can't catch. And, if someone says, I definitely high-backed a deer, I've been tracking since 2008, and we've recovered 2.
I don't know.
One.
Really?
I've never recovered any high back.
We've recovered 1, and that was Aaron's.
But
he had cracked the spine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So it was
gimpy.
it
just
literally
luck.
she ran off out of pure adrenaline, but once she got to that point where it wore
A mile
off,
away.
she could not
Move.
she could stand
Yeah.
and her front legs worked fine, but her rear legs wouldn't operate properly. So when we got to her, she was standing, and I had to dispatch it. And the first shot, I hit the deer. I mean, I used 357,
Yeah.
hit the deer, and of course, you shoot a deer, it runs. And it bounded and almost ran me over.
And
And
every
then- but
light
stop.
in the neighborhood came on because it turned out we
Yeah.
were in a neighborhood and we
Yeah.
didn't know
we
it.
were
Oh.
we were right at the legal distance to shoot. I
shoot.
mean, literally to the
300,
feet.
Yeah, I pulled up the GPS and we looked at
It was
how
305
far-
yards or
300
something.
305.
315, something like that. It was
305
really
feet.
right
we
there.
were literally on the edge.
So deer jumped again, and then you could see she
Drag her
couldn't
back,
go,
yeah.
and I was like, coyotes are gonna get her anyways. So
Yeah.
I finally got her in the heart and dispatched her. The first shot I shot her, tried to shoot her here in the neck because it was the easiest shot for me,
Right.
and it didn't work as well as I thought. But she did the next shot.
Oh, that's
dropped
good,
her.
yeah.
But we had to call the police and
Yeah.
and
Let
tell
'em
them.
Hey, we're back here, yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, my friend.
Not one person called that in
Nope.
at 10 o'clock at night on a Halloween.
Yeah.
Not one person called the police and said,
No.
"Hey, there's some gunshots in my backyard."
No, a friend of mine.
No,
was-
that's some
was
good
a-
friends. Those are
yeah.
the friends you want.
My friend's was a night sergeant. He said he never heard a thing about
Oh,
it. so.
cool.
Yeah, but it's that's the only high back deer we've ever recovered, and
Wow.
only because it was,
That was with a muzzleloader.
Cracked
Yeah.
spine, huh?
cracked the spine.
The muzzleloader scares me. Nick, the one he shot, it's like he hit it right in the lungs, and it's like a little bit of good blood, and then a little bit of blood, and then it's like at the point it's me and him trying to find, and no snow yet.
No,
But it was just the blood you want to see is like on the trees and over here, and,
Yeah.
whatever. And it wasn't like that. And it's the second time I've shot a deer, good shot, in the boiler room, and then it's like pins, like a pin, and then at the point where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stand here at last blood, and you kind of go do what you got to do. And then we ended up finding the deer, but the muzzleloaders, for whatever reason, they don't impress me.
incarcerate that.
Yeah, we find we get a lot of muzzleloader hits that are high,
Yeah.
and I've
low.
always survived. Some
Or
of them are
low.
low, but most of them are
High or
high,
low.
and it's because people are used to shooting a regular center fire rifle, and
Yeah.
it's pow, it just goes off.
No, you
They hear the
click,
snap.
Muzzleloader, you get that
Holding it
that
tight, yeah.
split second delay that you can't. When you watch somebody shoot it, you don't notice it,
Right.
Yeah.
But it's there, and I think a lot of guys flinch
Yeah.
and does that, and that makes it
That
causes it to
little
go
tiny
high.
bit, right.
Yeah, and some guys are deadly with them.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys are just dead nuts with them, but some guys really flinch when they shoot them, and I think that has a lot to do with it. That, and I think that there's times when people do speed loads, or loading it by hand, that sometimes they may mismeasure,
Yeah.
or they don't put enough Pyrodex in, or whatever they use. I don't hunt with a muzzleloader, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you have to try to figure out how much powder for your set way of shooting to make it shoot
make
right.
it-
right.
And if you make it too weak, it's not going to penetrate. I mean, I've had shotgun shells. I had a box of turkey loads that I literally shot a turkey at 10 yards and watched the pellets bounce off the turkey because
Really?
there was a
Defective.
factory defect in it.
Oh,
So
yeah. What kind of ammo was that? I had 2 this year do the same thing. Yeah, I saw that.
That was Winchester. That was my Winchester.
Yeah, I was Justin too.
I've gone completely to
And I don't want you to, cause we sure have fun.
not to
Throwing
push
my
anything.
money away. You been high, I've been low. You're all in and I'm all broke.
Yep, there it goes. There it goes.
Another paycheck down the drain. Yeah, baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning, I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Just like a sip of wine leads me to drink. You're my gateway drug. I'm starting to think it's gonna take much more than just 12 steps. So call Betty Ford, call Dr. Drew. Save me a bed, 'cause in a month or 2 I wanna quit you, girl. Just not yet. Yeah, baby, when we're together, you're the only drug I need. But in the morning, I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Barreling down the road past these city lights, you got your hands on the wheel, a look in your eye. I ask myself, is it time to slow down? But the night's still young, we're full of gas. Credit cards in my pocket with some limit left. And we got friends in the next town. Yeah, baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning, I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Yeah, oh baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning, I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Oh, 'cause you're so bad for me. 'Cause you're so bad for me. So bad.